Brought to you in association with Grendel Press. This is Werewolf the Podcast, a serial killer drama.
My fellow lunatics, this is Werewolf the Podcast, and we're on episode 159 today. Woo! And we're so close to the end of this series. This series that was supposed to be 3 podcasts has now turned into 30 odd podcasts. If it's driven you mad, it's driven me mad too. But there we go. Sometimes life is difficult. Please go down to the description and join all the people that have joined us on the Facebook group. There's some mad chats that go on down there. There's Twitter, is it called Twitter or X? And there's Instagram, and there's TikTok, and there's all these different places you can go and have a chat to us. Yeah, life is good. Let's get on with doing things like howling at the moon and killing gods. Whee! The professor had gone. Well, this is the last part of the series, so I'm not going to explain the whys, wherefores, or describe the characters in great detail, because honestly, this series is very good and should be listened to it in its entirety. Please do, it's well worth doing. We've worked hard on it, and I must admit, it's very good. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, I'm not the only one to say that. There's been loads of listeners out there and people who've told us it's great. They can't all be wrong. Oh, don't get me wrong, there's a few that don't like it, and that's fair enough as well. We're not the podcast that you've been looking for, that's all. The professor has popped off somewhere after being unable to do the dirty deed. What was the dirty deed? The dirty deed was to kill Will and the werewolves and, well, even worse, destroy their souls. He had learnt previously that to kill an immortal werewolf soul, all it took was to take out the canine teeth of the host and crush them. Apparently there's always an Achilles heel to every type of immortal being. The Achilles heel in this case was, as far away from the heel as possible I suppose, was the werewolf's tooth. Will did not know where the prof had gone. He and Fen were just super grateful that he hadn't killed him. Will had learned an important lesson, or was trying to learn an important lesson. You can't trust or care for anyone. No one can be trusted. That was how it was, and he'd been disappointed in the professor, but only in the fact that the professor even had to make the choice between his living and dying. The professor had been told by God, apparently, to kill the monsters. Well, again, apparently that's what he thought. I think he's kind of worked out now who was giving him the actual orders, which has kind of wrecked the professor's head, I think. Wrecked the head, is that what you young people say? So he's gone somewhere with Bosworth, the giant pink glowing genie. Yeah, you need to listen to these things. He was meant to kill the werewolves, and he almost did. And then the professor left. Will. I fell to the ground in a heap. I don't remember much of what happened after the professor told the genie to restrain me. I don't know much about genie magic. The only thing that I knew at this moment was that I hurt all over. Like, proper hurt. Fuck stuff hurt. I lay ragged on the floor, proper ragged, a naked mess in a naked, sweaty and somewhat bloody pile. My breathing was fast and shallow and, did I mention, I hurt. I hurt all over. I may have mentioned this before. Shit, it really hurt. The worst hurt was in my head. These new emotional things, well, they hurt. I mean, they properly hurt. I think I would have rather have lost a leg than go through the hell like my head was hurting at the moment. I was suffering. The fight and the killing had taken a big toll on my body. It was a wee bit wrecked, as the Scottish say. I knew I'd recover, from my physical injuries in a very short time, but at this moment, I was the most mentally exhausted I'd ever been, and I was thinking instead of raging. Yeah, thinking. I should be raging and working out a way to give that rage to the fucking world. Fenn's mind was close, and that proximity in itself was reassuring. He was not dead. Can he die? No, he can't be dead, can he? He could only be gone. Be gone. If the professor had had his way, he would have been destroyed. That professor. He sickened me. He was the fucking reason for all this shit. I hate him. Yet, at the same time, I really don't. The fuck is that all about? I was not built for complex psychological conflicts. I was built for black and white thinking. Ethics and morals are for those that need them. I don't need them. Not me. You okay? Was transmitted into my brain. I lifted my head from the mess that had once been a lush, grassy, expansive lawn, but what was now was a bloody, muddy soup. I was covered in God gore. That's a great name for a black metal band right now, isn't it? Fenn laughed in my head. You can't be in that much of a shit state if you keep getting distracted by banal shite, he told me. Kind of hurt my feelings. Band names aren't banal shit. They're important. I chided him. I could now hear the sirens and the helicopters of the human race arriving to save the day. But unfortunately, the day was over. There was nothing to rescue. Everything here was dead. Everything here had been killed and worser. The humans were sending help. These bits did not need it. I laughed. The old me was still in there, mixed in with the new thoughts. I could still appreciate the death and destruction that I'd caused. I have to admit, it was a really enjoyable fight. My friend Simon and I had won the day, as it were. Together, we fought and ruled against gods and demons and more. Then, that same said man had let me down and he had trapped me. Fuck. That was shit. As I lay in my unglamorous pile, my body was already feeling better. Energy effervesced through my veins as it gathered for whatever was next, whatever that was. I didn't really have a clue. But my body was ready for it. I don't know what was coming next, but yeah. Then my memory of the professor and Lucifer came back. He had wanted to kill me. He really did. He had wanted to kill all the werewolves here. He'd tried to kill me after what had happened between us. How did that happen? And you bloody told him how to, Will, came from the wolf's soul. I did, didn't I? I fucking told the bastard how to do it. I'd not even thought about the power that I'd given him by telling him that. I never thought that he'd actually fucking try and do it. What a dick I'd be. What a fool. What a fucking idiot at the highest order. Hey, lad. You weren't an idiot. Who the fuck was saying that? I looked up. The great neon pink robe was floating in front of me. I looked back down at the mud. Ah, fucking Bosworth, the fucking genie, I said, smiling. Rage punched into me gut at this time, just at the fucking genie's presence. I was going to try and tear that fucking robe and him to fucking shreds. Nay, lad, there might be a big grown-up werewolf, but they can't even touch me, I'm afraid. You would waste your energy, and to be honest with you, I'm only hanging around to tell you the truth about Professor, he said with a sort of laughing but caring tone. I called on Fenn to join me. I wanted him to make me the werewolf or the wolf for us to combine and take out this whatever the fuck it was. I mean, something that ridiculous looking couldn't be that powerful, could it? It was a pink neon shiny fucking thing, wasn't it? I was very wrong indeed. It was as though he was reading my mind, and as I watched, the robe changed. It became a gargantuan, misshapen skeleton. And when I mean gargantuan, I mean like fucking huge. It was goat-like with horns and its eyes held burning flames of blue. It must have been 40 feet tall with fucking wings with no fucking feathers on them and fucking terrifying and fucking shit. And those blue flames of the eyes leaked from its now crocodilian face. It was a horrific creature to behold. It was wrapped in boiling blackness as a cloak, which only highlighted the energy that crackled across its surface from bone to dying, living, bone to fucking bone. It roared and blew a stream of blue heated flames above my head. I closed my eyes, waiting for the moment of pain before death. My hair was singed as the heat passed above me. I wasn't dead, although my hair had looked better, I must admit. As I slowly and carefully reopened my eyes, I saw that the gigantic monster was once again the fucking pink robe. "Fuck fighting that, Will," said Fen as my sphincter once again relaxed. "Hey, that's the real me, Will, as you can see. It would not be, best shape for service industries, would it, if I looked like that all the time? I mean, if I'm in pub, being that big and stuff, no one else is going to be in pub with me. Who wants to talk to something that looks like that?" "Okay, I get the point," I angrily told him. I felt a little impotent at that point. "Can I tell you something, lad, before I release your family?" the robe said, pointing to the people suspended in the air. I nodded. I mean, what else was I going to do? I mean, he could do whatever he wanted, couldn't he? He could obviously sense I still wanted to hurt him, but I think he knew why. "Thou might want to think hard about what a man the Professor is before you make a decision on him. You might like to consider that thou's still here, lad. If you hadn't stopped, you wouldn't be here, lad, would you? I think he has been fooled by someone that both knows, like the one from down there, if you know what I mean. Do you ken?" He pointed towards the ground. "I will tell thee this, lad. That man despises himself at the moment. Is trying to drown his sorrows and work out what the fuck happened. You both need time to work things out before they meets again. I'm going to try and talk to him too before he kills himself too many times with me whisky. Hey, bloody hell, that lad can drink," he told me. He pointed now at my floating family. You have a lot of work here first, me friend. Family matters, remember that. Oh, and remember, family is not always about blood. Sometimes families make mistakes. Consider that, eh?" He clicked his fingers and the 4 bodies dropped from the sky into little piles. They moved and made noises of distress and confusion. I was still fucking fuming as I turned back to Bosworth. But of course, as with all the fucking supernatural characters in this fucking bloody podcast, he'd now disappeared and gone. My eyes were then drawn to the red mop of hair lying on the floor on its face. The heap was, well, it was swearing most vociferously. It made me laugh. That had to be Sally. The body slowly unfolded and turned onto its back and looked up at the sky with a deep sigh.
"Right, someone better fucking explain to me what the bloody hell is going on, because I'm so fucking pissed off to the fullest of fullness. For fucking
She shouted at the heavens and then lay still. I started to walk towards her and she noticed and rolled her head in my direction, somewhat uncontrolled. It seemed like it was loose on top of her neck. That face. So pretty. Those lips, full. Little scar on the top one. The little nose. Dirt and blood hid the freckles and her hair was greasy and unkempt, yet... Well, she was a mess, but nothing had ever been more beautiful in my mind. Her eyes suddenly flashed and clashed with mine. Oh. Recognition and then tension registered in them. I was I was worried about something, but I wasn't quite sure what I was worried about. I think it was about how she was going to react. And then she smiled at me. She just smiled at me. And there was nothing but that smile that now really mattered.
I sat at the bar in Phaeton. Bosworth appeared and joined me. He'd been kind enough to transport me there when my topsy-turvy world had fallen apart at the scene of the Vampire Queen's rather grisly demise. The realization that Lucifer had orchestrated so much of what had transpired, that Will and I had been little more than playthings for her, had rocked me to my core. I just hadn't seen it. We were nothing more than marionettes for her to tinker with and discard on a whim. When she provided assistance for us both, she knew that she was simply helping us navigate our way towards an inevitable showdown in which she would use me as executioner in a ghastly game of revenge that she had architected. She had used Will in order to gain her revenge on Samarat, and she would use me to gain her revenge on Will. But for what? It all seemed so petty. Sammy may have had a brief tryst with Gabriel, the Almighty's messenger, but so what? Lucy hadn't been a resident of heaven since she fell, whenever that was. It was a bloody long time ago, I know that much. But whatever the case, I couldn't imagine Gabriel being that important to her now. And did she really view Sammy as a threat to her position as the most worshipped Antichrist on earth? Maybe she did, but it seemed to me that Lucifer's power was way beyond that of the vampire goddess. Surely she didn't view such a pretender as a legitimate rival. And Will, he had been to hell, and he had indeed caused her a minor inconvenience, but she seemed to like him. Leading him to believe that Sally and the pups had been killed by Sammy was particularly cruel. And then I remembered the image of that hotel suite when I sat on the floor and cradled Will's head in my arms as he wept for the loss of his one true love and his children. And she had been there then, hadn't she? Course she had. I gritted my teeth, and a tiny tear found its way to the corner of my eye. I shuddered and wiped it away with the back of my hand, my armour clanking slightly as I did so.
"Are they all right, lad?"
said Bosworth. I glanced at him, a wincing pain flashing across my countenance as I did so. "What was it Marcellus Wallace said? Ah, yes, that was it. I'm pretty fucking far from all right." I shook my head and allowed it to hang, my chin resting upon my armour-plated chest. I'd learnt this trick when sleeping on guard duty at night when my father had me in training with the plebs all those centuries ago. It was actually quite comfy. "If you're worried that I'm going to drink myself to death, old boy, I can put your mind to rest on that one. I have on previous occasions drunk myself to death no fewer than 7 times, and I tell you this, never bloody does you any good. Don't even get away with not having a hangover. It's a real swizz." The bar was empty. Bosworth had seen to that. We sat at the bar, the two of us. Well, I say sat. Bozzy sort of fluttered slowly above the bar stool next to mine.
"Fliss, lass,"
he called.
"Gerald's one of them top-at-shelf bottles, love. Aye, that one, aye. I guess we might be here for a while yet."
I drained my glass and Fliss opened another bottle of whisky and provided me with a refill. It was the finest I'd tasted since... hers. Thank you, Felicity, I said. I mean, Felicity.
Are you drunk, Simon?
She asked. Certainly not, lady, I replied, a mock curtness to my tone. I haven't been drunk since we finished the last bottle. I am instead uppily shit-faced. I mean, shit-blistered. I'm utterly shitty-carcard, or whatever the word is. Wank-puffined.
I think the term's twatted,
ventured Bosworth. That's it, I said. I've never been more splattered in my old bloody life. Lives or whatever. Except when I've killed myself. That was only a teeny-weeny bit more tipsy-whipsy. What I most certainly am is defeated. Indeed, I would go so far as to say I am utterly destroyed. Utterly destroyed. She has destroyed me, that Lucy. And I have betrayed my best friend and failed in my mission. I'm fucking miserable. She's a right fucking bitch. She's always taking the piss too. Do you know, when I was bricked up in that stupid king's fucking dungeon for 100 bloody years and starving to death time after time after time, she kept visiting me, I asked her if she'd help me out, use her magic or whatever to help me out in some way. She wouldn't even bring me a bloody sandwich. Not that we had sandwiches back then, but you know what I mean. She would just hang out with me, chattering away, natter, 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 chatter, 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 until I slowly starved to death. And then, when I came back to life, she'd do it all over again, you see. Do you know, I thought she was keeping me company. But I'm starting to wonder if she wasn't actually rather enjoying seeing me bloody withering away to an emaciated corpse on a fucking loop.
That might have something there, lad,
said Bosworth. I mean, you're a woman, aren't you, Flicky? She shook her head in a no. That was a shock. I looked at my glass in the hope that the liquid gold would help me work out what she meant. What? I was confused, and the alcohol-fueled confidence had to have the question addressed. I wouldn't let it lie. You were rather womanly and stuff when you and I nodded and winked in a suggestive way. You know, don't you saucy old gaddy, you? She stopped me before I went beyond the lines of decency.
I'm an elf,
she said.
I'm a female, though.
Relief ran through my body. You are female, then? Thank the Lord and all the saints in heaven for that.
Yes,
she replied and winked.
When I want to be,
she said as she walked away. Looking at her from behind, there was no doubt in my mind, and to be honest, watching that walk as she shelved a few glasses, I think I was convinced by the time she returned that all was very much okay in that department. Rather, that walk and the whisky made me no longer care, but I smirked at the thought. I needed to move on, quickly. Can you explain why she does the things she does, Flossie?
Oh, sorry, Simon. I really can't help you there. I don't think Lucifer has ever actually lived a lifespan as an earthbound female of any kind. So I'm not sure that we've got that much in common, to be honest.
Oh yes, of course. I'm sorry. I was being stereotypical there, wasn't I? Stinkable. The stereo thing, you know the one. I do hope you didn't think I was being sexist there, m'lady. The last thing I'd ever want to be is sexist, especially to a lovely little girlie like you. I will tell you one thing I bloody well know, though.
Oh, well, lad, what's that then?
Asked Bosworth. She knew all about my mission. From God, I mean. She was there when I chose Jesus' offer over hers.
Aye, well, that can't have gone down too well, could it, lad?
Well, no, it didn't, you see. When it became clear that she'd been rejected, she called Jesus an arsehole, and she disappeared back down to hell. Poof! I took another draught of the powerful whisky and felt my connection to the conscious plane slide a little further from my control. I shook my head. Had Fliss said something? "What's that, Mom?" I asked.
Oh, sorry, Simon. That's unless she wasn't actually talking to Jesus and she was actually calling you an arsehole, for rejecting her.
"What?" I asked, rhetorically. "Me, the arsehole? Well, I had never really thought of it like that. Do you suppose that's what she meant? Me? Moi? Mich bitte? Me? More of an arsehole than Lord Jesus Christ Almighty himself? Oh, I suppose when you put it like that, it is a possibility," I mused.
So, she knew all about your missions to clear out all the persecutors you can find in order to get your passage to heaven then, to get it all sorted. So she knew that at some point you'd turn against Will and Fen for being persecutors,
said Bosworth. I nodded in agreement whilst glugging more whisky down my neck. I was by now no more than 12% conscious.
Well, that said that werewolves aren't persecutors, but that they're just predators, isn't that right?
I nodded again.
Well, see, lad, that's the bit I don't get. How did she bloody know you'd killed Werewolf for being a persecutor if Werewolf wasn't actually a persecutor?
I shook my head, the confusion building in what was left of my state of consciousness. I belched obnoxiously as I tried to speak, just about managing not to vomit as I did so. "Oh, I don't know, old boy. She must have seen my letter. The note from God telling me to kill the bloody monster. She's all over the bloody place, that one. There's not much gets past old Lucy, I chuckled and took yet another drink. It's hard to tell when a genie is confused. You can't really see their features. But I could sense Bosworth's confusion, even through my blathering drunken haze.
But if Will really isn't a persecutor of people, then why did God even tell you to kill him? It's weird, isn't it?
"Well, I don't know, Bozzy Wozzy," I barked. "He's got quite the reputation for moving in mysterious ways, don't you know?"
That's assuming it was really from him in the first place,
offered Fliss as she busied herself behind the bar, straightening bottles and polishing glasses. "Huh?
You what?
What's that?" said Bosworth and I, almost as one. I stared at Fliss. We both did. My whisky glass was held in my right hand. It had stopped halfway to my mouth and showed no signs of continuing its journey at this stage.
"Oh, sorry,"
said Fliss.
"I just meant, what if that message didn't come from God in the first place? With Lucy being such a tricky customer. What if it was actually she who sent you the message? That would explain everything, wouldn't it? Revenge on Sammy for her fling with Gabriel, or being a rival, or whatever. Revenge on Will for upsetting the apple car in hell, and revenge on you for
rejecting her offer in the dragon's den, I said, completing her sentence and suddenly sounding stone-cold sober. Oh my God. The glass shattered in my numbing hand. In fact, my whole body went numb. And it was at that point that the drink finally got the better of me, and my brain began to shut down completely. As the truth crashed in upon me like a tsunami hitting shore, I slid from my stool unconscious before I hit the floor. My head rang like a clock tower bell as my eyes fluttered, and I momentarily regained consciousness just long enough to reply to Bosworth when he spoke to me.
Lad, are they all right? Are they all right, lad? Are they all right?
He inquired with a caring tone. As I tried to respond, the opening scene of Macbeth came to mind, and as I burbled, I hoped that in some way my friends Will and Fen could hear me. When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won, where the place? Upon a heath, to meet the one with gnashing teeth, an ally, friend, or foe to be, when those two glowing eyes I see. Oh, when shall we three meet again, in thunder, lightning, or in rain?
When the devil bitch has stopped her fun, when it's all over and the fight is done, there we face, the first to yield, to meet the man with clashing shield, a bastard, pal, or enemy. White leopard on red field is heraldry, and when we meet that cunt again, there's going to be a reckoning.
Brought to you in association with Grendel Press. This is Werewolf the Podcast, a serial killer drama.